And then you've got Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney trying to bring in aid packages in a unarmed boat, trying to bring in medicine and food. And the Israeli military, they didn't board her and turn her around. No, they rammed her with a huge ship and cut off the front of the ship and almost sunk it and then boarded her. Very aggressive under international law, and was clearly illegal. And then they did that in international water. Yes, a country can claim that they believe weapons, drugs, or other things are being shipped in and interdict a vessel that has declared it is coming into port there, even while it is still in international waters. But if you open fire on the ship, or if you try to sink the ship without trying to peacefully board first, that is an act basically of brutal piracy. And so this is all going to be analyzed here. But regardless, it's another big black eye for Israel. Now, while this is happening, the world markets are melting down. While this is happening, world government is openly being established on a planetary scale by the global private central banks that have orchestrated the economic collapse in our society. And so I want to open the phones up basically to discuss what's happening in Gaza, what happened to the Flotilla, what's happening on the Korean Peninsula, what's happening with the euro, Spain losing its AAA credit rating, California on the verge of losing its AAA credit rating, the United States on the verge of losing its AAA credit rating. And, of course, you know what that means. People are like, so what if the state loses its AAA credit rating? Or so what if a country loses its AAA credit rating? You pay almost all of your taxes now not to fill potholes, not to pay the local power utility that many areas of the country's government owned, not for fire and police. No, you pay most of your taxes on interest to the debt. Interest to the debt that is manufactured out of thin air, that is made up, that isn't real. They gain the world out of this fiat debt. That's why they want to get you in debt. That's why they send unemployed college students credit cards every week. But once you're stable and aren't in debt, they don't send them to you. They want to get you into debt. It costs them nothing to give you the credit. It's all made up. They gain the world through this fraud. Well, when the U.S. and Spain and Portugal and Greece and Iceland and England and sub-governments within those countries, like California, loses its AAA rating, you stop paying as a country or as a state or as a city 5 or 10%, different variants of that on that scale in interest. You start paying 15%, 20%, 30%. And then, of course, the debt that is $14 trillion becomes $30 trillion. And then you have no way of paying that. So then you get a 30% debt rating. And then they give you credit again. And then it's 50%. And then off a few $1 billion like Nigeria, the example I love to use, it turns into 50+ billion paid on one little loan. On $100 million, you might end up paying back $5 billion over the years. On $1 billion loan, you end up paying almost $60 billion, actually, if you pull the numbers up, with another $50 billion owed. So over $100 billion on $1 billion. All made up. That's pretty good business if you can get it. But see, it gets worse. Because once you're fully in debt and can't pay it back, then the globalists come in and take over your entire society. And they're a bunch of eugenicists who want you to die. They don't want you to be their slave. They want you gone. They own the earth. They're the New World Order. They want you out of their way. A lot of times when the Romans would take over an area, they would just kill everybody. Sometimes they'd take over a castle, fortress emplacement over a key port. And they would allow the rest of the country to live, but they would say, we want to depopulate this area, kill all the villagers, kill all the men, women, and children, especially if they could write. If they could tell a tale, they would just kill everybody. Now, they were ignorant and couldn't write. They'd say, kill the men, Let's ship the men, the boys, and the girls and the women off to slavery. And it's the same thing. The globalists don't want you. The globalists don't want you around. Okay? All right, I'm gonna start over and really break down every facet and every angle of what's happening with the Flotilla situation and where all this is headed, because it's not headed in a good direction, I will tell you now. Turkey's talking about war with Israel. And Turkey isn't Egypt, folks. We'll be right back. Notice that just suddenly, it's as if someone flipped a light switch. There are global crises popping out like warts all over the surface of the planet. And it's only getting started, the quickening of society into the New World Order, into 2012. And no, I don't believe in the mumbo-jumbo of the Mayan calendar, ladies and gentlemen. The globalists have said they want their complete world government by 2012. They do believe in the occult. They do believe in numerology, and they are organizing serious crises. Look at this headline. Activists send new boat to challenge Gaza blockade. And what's Israel going to do to that? They're going to board that ship. And when they encounter resistance, they're going to have another shooting fish in the barrel exercise. And it's going to make Israel look even worse. And Israel doesn't care because they've got 400 nuclear weapons and they know how to use them. And they're saying, we don't care what anybody in the world thinks. Nobody is bringing anything into the 1.5 million people in Gaza, period. And Egypt says, we're not going to let the Gazans in. They're going to die. And that's the end of it. Activists send new boat to challenge Gaza blockade. Pro-Palestinian activists sent another boat to challenge Israel's blockade of the Gaza Strip on Tuesday, and Egypt declared it was temporarily opening a crossing into Palestine territory after a botched raid on an aid flotilla that ended with Israeli soldiers killing at least 9 activists. The raid provoked furious international condemnation of Israel, raised questions at home, and appeared likely to increase pressure to end the blockade that has deepened the poverty of 1.5 million Palestinians living in the Strip. Those are Palestinians driven out of the heart of Israel in the last 50 years. Turkey, which unofficially supported the flotilla, has led the criticism, calling the Israeli raid a bloody offensive. And here's another headline of the Jerusalem Post. Israel faces international fury over flotilla. Israel's top officials worked round the clock Monday to quell worldwide censure against its pre-dawn raid on a Gaza-bound flotilla in which 10 activists were killed. And that's continuing into Tuesday today. In fact, this is the latest information today, June 1st. Syria, Lebanon say flotilla attack can lead to war. Syria, Lebanon say flotilla attack can lead to war. Turkish women shout anti-Israeli slogans during a protest in front of the UN House in Beirut on Monday after Israeli commandos stormed 6 ships carrying pro-Palestinian activists and humanitarian aid on a mission to the blockade of Gaza Strip. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and Lebanese Prime Minister said on Monday that Israel's attack on the flotilla of aid bound for Gaza threatens to ignite a war in the region. Syria and Lebanon condemned the heinous crime committed by Israel through the brutal attacks on unarmed civilians on board the Freedom Flotilla. Both leaders said in a joint statement after a pre-planned meeting in Damascus. Here's another headline out of CNN. Turkey slams Israel for bloody massacre, says they're going to dispatch warships with the next flotilla. And they don't explain if that means the flotilla that just left to challenge the Gaza blockade. I mean, you got 1.5 million people, ladies and gentlemen. What, a few Katyusha rockets that I guess do kill a few people a year? I mean, the media calls them fireworks. They're not fireworks. If a 200-pound rocket falls on your head and kills you. But at the same time, I mean, Israel basically leveled large portions of the Gaza Strip, leveled it, killed thousands and thousands, tens of thousands. In fact, pull up the final death count. I want to be exact about that. I believe it was, well, I don't want to go from memory. I knew Gaza had about 1 million people, 1.5 million. Will you pull up international estimates on death toll in Israeli bombardment of Gaza? Or Gaza death toll 2008 should bring it up for us. The point is that it's all disproportionate, and no matter who you are, watching high-tech tanks and warplanes bombing civilians in Gaza, and now people fighting off commandos with lead pipes, it's not going to look good for Israel.